So let me read out a question that's in the chat box, Ajahn. It is from Pat Gold. The question is, as a family person, how can we practice to prepare for death?
Yes, well, as we've been discussing already, the Buddha said, remind yourselves of the impermanence of life every day. Even if just once a day, like we do the chant, I am of the nature to die, I've not gone beyond death, I'm of the nature to sicken, not gone beyond sickness. Separation from all I love and like is inevitable. Just that simple reflection, a reminder once a day, will already get your mind familiar with the theme, the possibility that everything will end for you, or the people you love, one day they won't be there. You're just introducing that as a reminder every day. And what happens is, because that is the truth tends to bring our mind more to more truth and waking up to the truth even more. So then you notice that death is very normal. Everyone must die sooner or later. Everyone has to experience death. It's just opening your mind up from the opposite. The opposite is we're often very closed. We're very, as I was saying, we take things for granted. We're complacent. We're often not reflecting on the truth of things very much. And we're just kind of going along, hoping it for the best, hoping everything will be all right in the end. And as long as things are basically all right, then we'll accept that. But once you introduce this reflection, oh, actually, I'm going to die and the people I love will die, there's a certain urgency there, isn't it? It starts to make things seem a little bit more important, like time becomes more valuable. How you relate to other people becomes more important, because if you know at some point, and you don't know when, you're going to die, they're going to die. Do you want to die with bad feeling between you? Maybe certain people in your life, you've got anger towards them, unresolved issues. Do you want to just keep that sitting there in your heart? It's not good for you, not good for them. Maybe it's better to clear it up. And then there's many good things we need to do that we haven't done yet. We've been putting off. So we need to do more good. And that sense of urgency will tend to prompt you and lead you to practice more, follow the Buddhist teachings, do more dana, help people. Maybe there's someone in your life who could use help, and you sort of know it vaguely in the back of your mind, but you've just been ignoring it or letting it go. But now you realize, I don't know how long they'll be here. We've all got to die. So maybe I should hurry up and go and help them out, at least go and, see what they need, visit them, do whatever I need to do, say what I need to say. There's a lot of things in life that we leave undone through complacency. And we often get caught up with distractions which are not that important. So, when you do contemplate death, you can use your imagination and be creative, and sometimes sit down and say, well, when I die, what's going to be important? And just as a little exercise, sit down, what's important? Are those little jobs that I keep reminding myself to do and then I spend so much time doing, maybe they're not that important. Where I'm going to go holiday next year is not that important. But my relationships to my parents, my children, my friends, I want them to be in the best possible state. I want to be developing kindness, good relations with people, forgiving them if we've fallen out or got any bad feeling or anger. That is important. That needs to be worked on. And maybe there's things you need to say to someone just to remind them that you appreciate them, love them, because once they're gone, you can't do that. So particularly elderly relatives, don't wait. Go and see them, tell them what you need to tell them. Make yourself do it, because we're often very lazy and we're shy and we feel awkward sometimes. Do it. Go ahead and do it while you can. Go and ask them forgiveness. In the Buddhist monasteries, we do this as a normal practice. if there's an elderly monk that's leaving or is sick or may die, you go and ask forgiveness. And you may do that many times before they actually die. It doesn't matter. And maybe you feel there's absolutely nothing you've done wrong, no intentional way that you've harmed them, but you still do it just in case. It's not a bad thing to do just in case, to express your appreciation for the person, ask forgiveness for them. So from the personal point of view, we want to develop our practice while we've got our time, while we've got our strength. So the reflection on death is just reminding us, get on and do more good. And then in our relations with other people, it's reminding us to make sure we've done what we need to do to show our appreciation to them, to assist them, ask forgiveness for them. And you get into that habit so that you're always aware things can change. And as we know, it's not just old people who die. When I was in Wat Nana Chat, my first year, the monk who used to sit next to me, he was from Penang, a Malaysian monk. He got cerebral malaria and died. And we're both in our 20s, just 22, 23 years old. And it's like one day he was there, one day he's gone. Oh. And I thought, if I'd known this was going to happen, I would have, said a few nice words to him, done more for him, because it was so unexpected. Death is unexpected often, isn't it? You just, even if you're with someone and they're ill and they're old and you know at some point they'll die, it's still a shock. It's still unexpected when they die. So don't leave anything undone. The good you need to do in that person, towards that person, the appreciation, the forgiveness, do it. And then, of course, do more practice for yourself, because you don't know how long you've got. So reflection on death every day just helps to adjust your thinking and your relationships so that they're more in line with Dhamma, and you appreciate people more, and you don't want to get so distracted on frivolous stuff, and you don't want to hold on to anger so much. You want to really do good, because you know your chance to do good is limited.
Thank you so much, Luang Por. I think at this point, I'd like to just recollect that recently, in the past 1 to 2 years, you lost your own family members yourself. Your father and your mom as well. And perhaps maybe you could help us with some instructions on how we can prepare ourselves as well as prepare our family members to face death, especially also those who are surrounding us, who are not steeped in the practice. From your own experience, perhaps you could share a little bit with us what you did and how we could use that for our own practice.
Right. Well, with both my parents, I personally tried to encourage them to reflect on their lives, the goodness of their lives during the period leading up to their death, because they were both in their 90s, lived long, full lives, but at the same time, it was obvious they were going downhill towards the end. So death, I didn't know when it would occur, but it was obvious it wouldn't be that far away. So for quite a few years, I was just developing that as a practice with them, discussing their lives, getting them to reflect and helping them to reflect and remember the goodness of their lives, because they both did a lot of good in their lives that they could draw on to bring up, a sense of personal satisfaction, happiness. And also then the other side is to bring up the forgiveness for any people who have hurt them or things that have gone wrong in their lives. Excuse me. Sneezing. Yeah. So there's particularly these two things: getting the person who's facing death to recollect the goodness of their life. I also taught them meditation the best you can. Luckily, my mother started practicing meditation much earlier than the last year of her life. Say she had experience of Buddhism for the last 30 or 40 years, so she had done retreats. She'd done retreats on death and dying and read some books and meditated, and she found meditation very hard, but at least she had the basic understanding of how to do it, and I think she found that helpful. We were always talking about how to let go of attachment, let go of fear, worry, and I could see with my mother a real change over a period of, say, 15 years perhaps, where death was something, a taboo subject that she didn't want to think about, didn't want to talk about. So ultimately, she could talk about it. She could tell us what she wanted done with her body after death. And she died very peacefully, which surprised some members of the family, because earlier on in her life, you wouldn't have thought that was possible. So there's also an education of other family members as well. Everyone, you're trying to help them to prepare for the inevitable ending of someone's life by focusing on the good, caring for her with the material side, caring with on the emotional side, caring through the Dhamma. And it really is it's a practice we're all doing together, isn't it? You know, it's not especially people you're close to, family, parents, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, it's a shared journey. So you're all learning and you're in it together. So you have that, I would encourage that sense of shared experience, try to develop family harmony the best you can. Obviously, we build up our own attachments, our likes and dislikes towards people, our own personal history, but you're trying to get everyone just to accept the fact that life is impermanent. You want the person to die well. You want to be at peace with them yourself. You want them to be at peace with you. And those themes, you're just developing them in whatever way you can, through skillful speech, skillful bringing people together sometimes to talk, to enjoy each other's company, to forgive and forget for the past, that kind of thing. See the good in people, the good in the person who's dying, the good in yourself, and just keep developing that. And meditation as well. If you can get people to meditate together, to be at peace together, meditating together, that's a very powerful experience as well. If it's a Buddhist or person with faith in Buddhism, also listening to the Dhamma, reading Dhamma to them. If they can't read a book, you can read to them. They can listen to the Dhamma, can play chanting. It depends on the person and what level of interest and faith they have. But these are the general themes you're developing, is ways to get people to be at peace with themselves, at peace with the way things are. And if somebody is dying, well, to be at peace with that.
Thank you so much for sharing, Paul. And I recall that there were special things that activities that you did after your mother's passing in honor of her life. If it's not too private, might you be able to instruct us on some of these things that we can learn from?
Well, funerals much the same everywhere, aren't they? You tend to have the formal ceremonies. So we had some Buddhist funeral services and talk about the life of the person, obviously celebrate the things that, and have people talk about them. And then going to monasteries, we went to Amaravati Monastery as a family, make offerings, and then we had a tree planting ceremony. Once the cremation had taken place, we had the ashes, we scattered them and planted a tree at Amaravati, which I'm happy to say, I just got a photo of it the other day and it's still there, still doing well. And the gardener there has kindly put a fence around it. We put a small fence around it, but then the deer, like here in Bodhivana at Amaravati, they get deer and they like to damage trees. So we had a not very good fence around it. Now they put a really good fence around it, so it should be protected. So there's my mother's tree there as a little memento to my mother. My father is in a Christian church, so he has a headstone. Me personally, I do meditation and share merits, my own practice, send my thoughts, send my merits to my parents regularly. I've done that since I was a young monk, all the way through till they died, and then I continue to do that today. And That's another thing you see the benefits of meditation, is you learn to calm your mind, bring your mind in line with truth, see the truth, let go of stress, negativity, greed, anger, and delusion. The more you do that, the more you feel you have something of value inside yourself, in your heart. And then when you think of your parents or any other loved ones, there's something tangible that you can send to them. You become more in touch with the goodness of the heart, and then you can send that out to them, share that with them. So that's an important thing. So most monks will do this. They'll meditate and direct their mind to pass on merits or spread metta to their loved ones. And maybe that can have a good impact. Once upon a time, I was traveling to England on a plane. This is about, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago maybe. And the day before I arrived, my mum was in Tesco's, the supermarket. And I was sitting on a plane spreading metta. Mum, Dad, here I come, spread my mind. And my mum said, oh, when I arrived, she was saying, yesterday I was in Tesco's. I had this wave of rapture come over me. And I felt so happy just thinking that you're coming to visit. And I just felt so peaceful, more peaceful than I felt for a long time. And my sister was there, and we were just talking and said, oh, I never knew you could get that experience in the supermarket store, Tesco's. Anyway, that's just a funny anecdote. But our minds affect each other. So before, during, and after death, we can share our good thoughts, the goodness of our lives with our loved ones in any way we can to help them. And it helps us as well. It's a two-way thing.
I'd like to follow up with a mundane question. With your mom, the family planted a tree, took the ashes and planted the tree. In some of the places that we live in the countries that we live in, there are marketeers who try to promote plots of land that it's like, a cemetery that they name Nirvana Cemetery. And some of these plots of land or even the niches would cost a certain amount of money. It's quite a big investment. So there is a choice to put the ashes in these niches. There's also a choice to have the ashes strewn in the sea, so sea barrier. So what are your thoughts around some of these barrier methods, and what might practicing Buddhists like us living in a mundane world be able to decide in this cloud of confusion when someone is passing away? What might be some of these decision points that we should make?
I think the best thing ideally is to have this discussion with the person long before they die. So it can be in their will or a living will, or just at least through a discussion with family members, close friends or family members. And we had this with my mum and dad. What do you want done after you die? So you do this when they're still healthy and happy and hopefully in a comfortable space that they can discuss it without feeling distressed. You ask them, what do they want? That's best, I would say. And if they have faith in Buddhism, they may want a Buddhist funeral service with monks chanting, Dhamma talks, offerings. They may want all that. They may, if they're Buddhist, most Buddhists get cremated, but you see what they want, what's their personal wish. And then you try and honor their life by putting their wish into action. So if they want a cremation, you have whatever services, ceremonies they want, you try to do. And then whatever they want done with their ashes. So if they really like, a paid plot of land that can be serviced and looked after for years to come by the family, if that's what they really want, well, discuss it with the family and see if you can afford it and cope with that, because it is like you say, it's an investment of time, energy and money. See, and it will probably only get more expensive because the world is getting smaller in the sense there's more people with less land available. So that's a discussion to have. But if it's in a case where they don't give you instructions because the death was sudden or you weren't able to have that conversation, well, the important thing is your intention in your heart to try and do something to honor them. What you know of your parents or the person who's passed away, you try and do your best guess at what kind of funeral and what they would want done with their body or their ashes. You make the best guess and you try to keep your intention pure, to do something good, to honor them. But the actual details of what you do, if they haven't specified, well, just try and involve the important people in the discussion. So, immediate family, those people who have a strong feeling, hear what they have to say and try to come to some decision, what everyone feels is the best, the right way to treat the body or the ashes of the person. But maintaining this sense of you want to honor the dead, so you want to do it in as harmonious and cooperative way as you can. You don't want death to become a cause of conflict in the family, and unfortunately it does sometimes. So be alert, that you're aware that that's one of the dangers. So you want to try and keep the harmony, the goodwill between people, and also to honor the person. So you have to listen to people's views and opinions. Often they're very emotional. People get angry as well very easily at this time. So you have to tread carefully, do the best you can, and then also be practical. Make choices that are practical for the future. So, if you can afford a plot of land that requires rent and upkeep, but the family can afford it and they're happy to do it, well, that's fine. If it's a burden, then you may have to make a decision, and you may feel, well, it's not quite what the tradition tells us to do, or what mum or dad wanted, maybe. But you also have to think of yourselves and balance between, tradition, custom, which may involve money. There's a lot of commercialization in funerals and death, of course. Balance that between what's practical for the family, what's possible. Maintaining your number one thing is your intention to honor parents or whoever it is who's died, to not be disrespectful, not to be indifferent, but at the same time, you have to balance that with what's practical as well. And the world is probably moving away from paid plots of land, funeral headstones and wongjui and places where the dead are buried, which require a lot of upkeep. So scattering ashes is fine as well. I mean, one thing you have to remember is the person who's died has gone. So they're not there to, complain about it or whatever. As long as you have your good heart, you try and come to a wise decision on how to treat their ashes or their body, and you do the best you can in the situation that's available to you. And as I said, the world is changing, so we can't always predict what we can do with burials, funerals, cremations in the future. But you keep your good intention. That's your priority. And try to be harmonious and cooperative with the relatives and friends who are involved.
Sadhu Lampa. There's a very interesting question here in the chat box. Lampa Kalyano, since we are discussing the topic of death, do you think that Buddhists should be encouraged to donate their bodies, all their organs, to save lives and also for medical science? Would this be more in line with how we view our bodies and the impermanent nature of our physical bodies? Can we save funeral costs and at the same time do a wonderful gift of their bodies, even at the point of death, the ultimate gift for mankind? So, and also we can dispense burial, cremation, and other costs. So thank you for your thoughts and advice. Paul?
I don't think there's one simple answer here, is there? It's a bit like dana. People would ask the Buddha, what kind of dana should I offer? And the sort of simple answer is, well, what makes you happy? So some people like to offer food, some people like to offer robes, some people like to build dwellings for monks, some people like to help the sick, some people like to help the poor. There's no one answer. Each individual has their own character, their karma, their personality. So that's an important thing. What makes you happy? And in the case of funerals and death and what we do with our body, people will differ, won't they? So I know even some monks who have donated their body to science, but the majority of monks will generally just have a cremation. And some monks want a very simple cremation, like you say, to save money, save fuss, just contemplate the impermanence of a human body, we cremate it and be done with it. So like Ajahn Buddhadasa was one of the most simple, basic funerals I've attended. Just put the body in a very simple plywood coffin on a pile of logs, cremate it, listen to a Dhamma talk, meditate while we were doing it. End of story. And they didn't even properly collect the bones. The bones, he said, you don't need to collect the bones, they just go back to the earth. So it's one of the most Dhamma funerals ever, because it's just so simple but so direct and pointing to the truth. But then other funerals are very grand and people come together, and that's not necessarily wrong, because a funeral can be an occasion for people to come together and do good, hear Dhamma, whether it's a layperson's funeral or a monk Sangha member's funeral. You have to see what's appropriate, partly on the wishes of the individual, partly on those who are left, and see what can be done. And sometimes donating a body to science is what the person wanted, and that's fine, and that's good, and it's helping education. Some people donate their body to science and the scientists don't want it, especially in this era of COVID. They've been rejecting bodies left, right, and center, unfortunately. It's unsure, isn't it? So don't be too fixed in your opinions on what's right, wrong, should do or not do. Because, my father's body, in the end, he donated it to science, so they only wanted a little bit of it. That's the life, isn't it? Sometimes your body is, even at the end, you want to donate it and do good, but they don't want it, or they don't need it, or it's people who've had COVID, unfortunately, they don't accept them. It's always a little bit uncertain here, so you have to be flexible, and you may have an intention to donate your body to science or donate your organs. That's a very good thing. But other people, their character is they just want a quick cremation, contemplate the impermanence, and that's good as well. There's no one right answer here, I think, and you just try and listen to people, to what they want, what's helpful to them, and then what's helpful to those who are left, and you try and implement a good plan. And there's a variety of things we can do, can't we, after death? But the number one thing to remember is the person has died. Life is impermanent. So whether the body goes to science or it's a sky burial in the Himalayas and it goes to the vultures, or it's buried under a tree, eco burial, or cremated, in the end, the person has died. That's the most important thing to remember.
Well, on this note, we can all put our palms together and renounce the three Lord sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.